The nuclear bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki on August 6 and 9, 1945 respectively, were two of the most significant and devastating events in modern history. These attacks marked the first and only use of nuclear weapons in war, leading to the immediate deaths of tens of thousands and long-term consequences for the survivors. The bombings played a crucial role in bringing an end to World War II, but also ushered in the era of nuclear warfare and the Cold War. By mid-1945, the war in the Pacific had reached a critical stage. Germany had surrendered in May 1945, and the Allies had turned their full attention to Japan, which showed no signs of surrendering despite heavy losses. The U.S. and its allies feared that a conventional invasion of Japan would result in massive casualties on both sides. In the background, the Manhattan Project, a top-secret U.S. initiative, had been developing nuclear weapons since 1942. The project successfully tested the first atomic bomb in New Mexico on July 16, 1945, in an event known as the Trinity Test. With proof that the weapon was operational, U.S. leaders decided to use it against Japan to force an unconditional surrender. Several cities were considered as potential targets, but Hiroshima and Nagasaki were ultimately chosen due to their military significance and relatively untouched state from previous bombings. Hiroshima was a major industrial and military center, while Nagasaki was a key port city with significant wartime production facilities. At 8:15 a.m. on August 6, 1945, the B-29 bomber Enola Gay, piloted by Colonel Paul Tibbets, dropped an atomic bomb, codenamed Little Boy, over Hiroshima. The uranium-based bomb exploded approximately 600 meters, 1,968 feet, above the city, with an estimated yield of 15 kilotons of TNT. The explosion produced an intense fireball with temperatures exceeding 4,000 degrees Celsius, 7,232 degrees Fahrenheit, at the epicenter. Within seconds, nearly 800 people were killed instantly, and the shockwave leveled nearly 70% of the city's buildings. Those who survived the initial blast suffered severe burns, radiation sickness, and injuries from collapsing structures. The mushroom cloud that formed rose nearly 13 kilometers, 8 miles into the sky, visible from more than 160 kilometers, 100 miles, away. Fires raged across the city, further increasing casualties. Over the following weeks and months, radiation exposure led to additional deaths, bringing the estimated toll in Hiroshima to 1,400 by the end of 1945, and survivors, known as hibakusha, suffered from chronic illnesses including cancer, genetic mutations, and psychological trauma. Birth defects were also reported in the following generations. 3 days after the Hiroshima attack, on August 9, 1945, the U.S. dropped a second atomic bomb on Nagasaki. The B-29 bomber Boxcar, piloted by Major Charles Sweeney, carried the Fat Man bomb, which was plutonium-based and had a more powerful 21 kiloton yield. The bomb exploded at 11:02 a.m. above 500 meters, 1,640 feet above the city. The topography of Nagasaki, with its valleys and hills, helped limit the destruction compared to Hiroshima. Nevertheless, the bomb killed an estimated 400 people instantly, with 600 to 800 total deaths by the end of 1945. Several reasons were cited for using nuclear weapons. First, the bombings aimed to break Japan's will to fight, avoiding a costly land invasion. Second, the attacks showcased American military supremacy, particularly to the Soviet Union. Additionally, the development of atomic weapons had cost billions of dollars, and some officials wanted to see its effectiveness. Some also viewed the bombings as retribution for Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. On August 15, 1945, Emperor Hirohito announced Japan's unconditional surrender in a radio broadcast, citing the overwhelming destructive power of the atomic bombs. The official surrender took place on September 2, 1945, aboard the USS Missouri, marking the end of World War II. The bombings have been subject to intense debate. Critics argue that Japan was already on the verge of surrender due to conventional bombings and a Soviet declaration of war on Japan. The bombings targeted civilians, making them war crimes under modern definitions, and the long-term health effects on survivors were horrific and underestimated. Supporters argue that the bombing saved millions of lives by avoiding a prolonged invasion. Japan's military was still resisting surrender, and the attacks helped prevent future large-scale wars by showcasing the horrors of nuclear warfare. The Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings marked the beginning of the nuclear age. They led to the Cold War, accelerating the Soviet Union's nuclear program and sparking an arms race. Several countries, including the UK, France, and China, later developed nuclear weapons. In response, nuclear disarmament movements gained momentum, with many organizations and activists, including survivors, campaigning against nuclear weapons. The establishment of international treaties, such as the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, NPT, aimed to prevent further use of nuclear weapons. Both cities have become symbols of peace and nuclear disarmament. The Hiroshima Peace Memorial Park and Nagasaki Atomic Bomb Museum educate visitors about the devastation and advocate for a world free of nuclear weapons. The annual commemorations on August 6 and 9 honor the victims and call for global peace. The bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki remain among the most tragic and consequential events in world history. While they brought an abrupt end to World War II, they also introduced the terrifying power of nuclear weapons. The attacks continue to fuel debates over the ethics of warfare, nuclear policy, and global security. The legacy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki serves as a stark reminder of the catastrophic consequences of nuclear conflict, reinforcing the urgent need for disarmament and international peace efforts.